Ah, sweet closure. The project that brought me into the fandom has finally come to a close. It's kinda sad when you really think about it. Yes, Turnabout Storm is what brought me into the fandom. Before I did this reviewing stuff, I was really into video games. So I was browsing YouTube for the Phoenix Wright movie. Top results, a My Little Pony fanfiction. Interesting enough. I decided to give it a shot, and I really enjoyed it. That was back before the fourth part was released. Each time a new part has been released, I've watched the whole project from the beginning again. I have a lot of free time. Rainbow Dash has been accused of murder. The racer, Ace Swift, was electrocuted to death in the Everfree Forest. The murder weapon was a storm cloud bearing her hoofprints. However, it's more than it seems. Rainbow's friends are convinced that she didn't do it, but how do they prove it? Bring in the greatest defense attorney in the universe. That just so happens to be Phoenix Wright.
Oh, Cosmos, you flatter me.
Since this is a mystery story, I'm going to have to be very careful to spoil as little as possible. So, for the most part, I won't talk about anything past the second part. This is so I can show both the investigation portions, where Phoenix or Twilight gathers evidence to present in court, and the courtroom portions, where Phoenix goes head-to-head with Trixie. Yes, Trixie is the prosecutor for this case. Honestly, she's probably the only one whose personality could fit the bill. There are a few things that you have to understand before going into this fan project. The first is that the tone is more in line with Ace Attorney than it is with Friendship is Magic. What do I mean by that? Well, there's a fucking murder for starters. But beyond that, it focuses more on drama and humor, and less on the emotional moments, although those are still there. There are also a few other additions as well, such as minor swearing talking about serious crimes, and a real risk of Rainbow Dash being actually executed. And by the way, what Trixie is doing may seem illegal or out of line, but no, in the Ace Attorney universe, she has every right to do what she does. The writing is Turnabout Storm's strongest asset. While the actual production values, the character models, animation, and music got better as the parts progressed, the writing stayed consistently good. Things that could have been ridiculous happenstance in a lesser story are made extremely plausible here. That being said, it's pretty much a Phoenix Wright staple. Actually, that sums up the story quite nicely. The story is good enough that I can actually see it being in an actual Phoenix Wright game, although they do take quite a few techniques from the games themselves. And unless you're paying really close attention, you might think that a certain subplot was dropped entirely. Most of the fun of the Phoenix Wright games is having Phoenix play off of the zany world around him. So, how good are the characters here? The first thing that you have to realize is that Turnabout Storm was written shortly after the first season ended, so the characters may come off as flanderized. Especially Pinkie, who, I can't believe I'm saying this, seems crazier than her usual self. I keep hearing the defense for Double Rainboom's characterization is that since it was written early in the show's run, it fixes all of its characterization problems. Yeah, I don't buy it. While Rainbow Dash sometimes comes across as a little simple in Turnabout Storm, you know, not a blithering idiot, the writers clearly understand what makes each of the characters special. When they do bend this, they're doing it for drama, and not because they're half-assing the story. The interactions are realistic and believable. Mostly.
Cupcakes have frosting on them, like how stepladders have a folding frame, while muffins are usually plain, like the ladder's flat.
Oh, I think I get it now. Like hacksaws and saws? Why'd they call it a hacksaw anyway? I don't get it. It doesn't hack. Hacking is what you do with daggers and axes. And knives!
Yeah.
Riddle me this. Which would be scarier, knowing what she's talking about, or not knowing what she's talking about? Applejack and Rarity, while totally in character, are very underused. They each get less than 30 minutes of screen time in a 7.5-hour production. I suppose that's better than just shoehorning them into the story for no reason, and they do get some closure at the end, so it's not all bad. Although Scootaloo and Sweetie Belle fans may be very disappointed, since they don't appear at all until the very end after the trial is over. I said prior that the production quality goes up with each subsequent part. It starts out with static vectors over static backgrounds, but when they get to the actual courtroom parts, there's actual lip syncing. In the final part, we have actual animated demonstration, courtesy of Mr. Poninator. The music is primarily instrumental tracks of both the Phoenix Wright and My Little Pony franchises, and everyone has their own specific background theme. So according to the music, there's nothing really to talk about. The best crossovers explain things pretty well for both franchises, so no one will be lost, without bogging it down with redundant information. I don't know how well the Phoenix Wright side is explained for the Friendship is Magic audience, but vice versa, everything's explained in a decent and sometimes even humorous way. Well, except for the inevitable question of why the hell am I enjoying something from the My Little Pony franchise? These explanations do have to break away from canon at some point, and deal with pure speculation. After all, the show hasn't exactly delved into the science of clouds very much. Speaking of explaining things, that brings me to my biggest problem with the series, and the only thing that prevents me from giving it a must-see ranking. The entire series is more than 7 hours long! And each part, excluding the first, is over an hour long. I'd say check out the first part to see if this is up your alley, but every player of Phoenix Wright knows that the courtroom scenes are the best part of the game. And they are the best parts of Turnabout Storm. So that extends to watching part 1 and 2, which pretty much adds up to a feature-length movie. Trust me though when I say it's well worth it.